What do you have for me today?
So I think, this is like a really important topic, obviously, because it kind of is the base for everything we do, right? I mean, we as in you and I, but also like people in general, which is the topic of happiness. And
Yeah.
I think, we know and appreciate each other because we're really into like self improvement and all this stuff. And I think all the stuff that we do on a daily basis, or long term, is based on what makes us happy long term, right? This is what we always think.
The reason why
So
I
I think
wake up every morning. Yes, absolutely.
I think the reason you wake up every morning is your circadian rhythm. But yeah, the reason you get out of bed, at least. Yeah. So I think what prompted this topic right now is that there was this video by Veritasium, which of course, who knows me knows this is my favorite YouTube channel. It's a fantastic YouTube channel, and he had a video a couple of weeks ago on the research of happiness. And I think it's a good idea to just like go through what the video said, the research presented in the video, and our thoughts on the topic of happiness.
Yep.
And I think you have watched the video as well, right?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. So I just rewatched it just to prepare a little bit. So I think maybe just in your own words you can tell me what you think kind of like the 3, 4, 5 biggest factors in happiness are, and then we can talk about what the video says and the research says.
Absolutely. So I guess the main points of the video were, you want me to talk about the video? What the video?
No, like, I mean, your own, I think your own opinion, and then we can talk about the video
Yeah,
after.
my opinion is that happiness is like a combination of factors, and there's definitely like it's like a pyramid. I guess they disprove the Maslow pyramid, right, of needs.
What is it called?
Maslow pyramid of needs.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but I don't know if
It's
it's
basically,
Maslow.
yeah, Maslow was the
How do you
scientist.
spell it?
Maslow.
Okay.
And so basically the concept of the Maslow pyramid was,
I think that was in the Dale Carnegie book that I read about it, because he said
yeah,
one of them was like vanity or recognition or something,
yeah, you have like
and sex was one of them. I remember that.
it starts with the physiological needs, like,
Yeah,
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 like I need shelter, sleep, like
yeah,
everything
yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
function. Then you have safety needs, right? Because after I function, I want to make sure I can continue functioning. Then you have like all the relationship related, right? So like love and belonging,
Mhm,
friendship, family, sense of connection. Then you have all the you start getting into your perception of yourself, so
mhm,
self-esteem, status, recognition, things like that.
mhm,
And then freedom, and then self-actualization, which is like the desire to becoming more of the best version of yourself.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
the and the I don't think that's been disproved as a concept, but the point of the theory was, if I get it right, was that you first need to fix the base layer to get to the higher layer. So
Yeah,
there was
yeah,
like a priority of like your
yeah.
needs.
I think this pyramid, I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it's missing the point of the interconnectedness of the layers, because your physical needs influence your mental health needs, and your mental health needs influence your physical well-being, and so on, right?
Right.
So there's some interconnectedness. Like, workout makes you mentally happier, and depression makes you physically sick, and all these things. So there's some interconnectedness. I think I don't want to get too philosophical here,
Hmm.
because you can get very philosophical about this topic, obviously. I think you could say that happiness, I mean, it's just a word, right? It's like whatever we define as happiness, but happiness and well-being is, in my mind, the thing everyone strives for when they make a decision on something. um, and at least I think the decisions we take that aren't driven by our brainstem, like not things like hunger and sex drive and sleepiness, right? These are like kind of like really basic needs. But everything that's a little bit more complex, that we really like take take decisions on based on like reflection,
But
are, I
I
think.
agree that like they play a role, right? If you don't sleep well, that really.
100%, 100%. I'm just saying, like, the tiredness feeling itself is really hardwired into your
Mhm.
brainstem. Um, Same as hunger. Like, we still eat to be happy in a way, but it's like, it's really like a really basic dopamine. I think probably it's dopamine. I don't, I'm not a neuroscientist, but I think it's like a really basic desire hard coded into our brainstem. And even if we're like the most depressed person in the world, we would feel hunger. Although
Right.
probably actually there are depressed
So
people
you're
that
saying
don't feel
it's not
hunger.
enough, right? You're saying like those need to be taken care of, but it's not enough. Like you.
Yeah, I think these we don't even have to talk about, because things like thirst and hunger and sleep, I think like everyone feels them, every animal feels them. But I think
But do
we're
you
talking more
think
about the more
we
complex things.
shouldn't talk about, because that's one of those scenarios, like, and I think depending on how you live, but many times that one of the problems is like not taking care of well enough of one of those things, and then you strive, you're like you push yourself every day to get um, to like a higher level of happiness, but then you don't focus on those enough, and
Yeah, no. I'm 100%. I think we will and should talk about it. I'm just saying. I just want to differentiate them philosophically, because they're there no matter what. That's what I'm saying.
Mhm.
And I think there's like a. Uh, I'm also saying, like, good food, good sleep, and so on will make you happier long term. But short term, they're just like basic needs that are, like, they're there if we think about them or not. That's what I'm saying.
Right,
But
right.
still, we should think about them. Um,
Then there's another
but yeah, so
concept which is like
yeah.
distinction between, and you touched on it, like the short term, long term. Because I think one, like the classic example that they say you shouldn't focus on is like, yeah, the
Yeah,
short term immediate happiness feeling is not happiness, right? Yeah.
exactly. So the short term is the dopamine rush, right? The drive. I
Mhm.
think maybe we should differentiate between the drive, the immediate drive, because, like, you can be addicted to something, and this is like your immediate drive, but it doesn't make you long term happy, like a drug addiction, social media addiction, but also things that are good for you, right? If you really need to sleep, you really need to sleep. If you're really hungry, you should really eat. But long term, it's about what you eat, not that you eat right now. You know.
True. So that's a
Um,
good analogy. Yes, I agree.
yeah, I think maybe that's the thing. Right? There's the immediate
You
kind
can
of like
apply
desire.
that
Yeah,
also to relationships, right? Like
yeah,
short
exactly.
term,
Yeah,
you need connection, but long term, you need the right kind of connection. Otherwise, you need the
exactly,
right kind
exactly.
of people around
Yeah,
you to make sure
yeah,
that.
exactly, exactly. So yeah, I think this is a good start. Why? So maybe let me tell you about how I got into this
Mhm.
topic in the first place. Like, I think like personal development in the beginning for me was like a little bit vanity driven. I think I was looking for the things that I think everyone, at least when they're young, but also some people when they're old, think that they want or need, like a girlfriend, a good looking body, more money, what else? A good job,
I mean,
all these
money.
things that we think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, like, I think
The
you and
big
I, we both
elephant
have
in the
this.
room. Yeah.
Yeah, the big elephant in the room. We'll talk about money, and I think we both have a relationship with money that is not the same, but I think we have matured, in terms of like our vanity there. But there's obviously still room to grow for sure.
Mhm.
But then after I got my PhD, I was a little bit lost, and I didn't really know what I wanted out of life. And there was this blog that I really liked. I think we've talked about it. Wait, but why?
Yep.
Do you know?
Yeah, yeah, I do remember it. Yeah, it's a good
And
book.
he had this article on like how to find a career that you really like. And in that article, which by itself was already really fun to read, he linked this research by this nonprofit organization called 80,000 Hours, which I
Mm.
think you.
Yeah, I actually
Yeah,
read a bunch of their articles as well. Yeah.
exactly. So it's a fantastic. It's a really fantastic website and organization, and really, I mean, their purpose is to get well-educated people motivated about doing good in the world. And this is like really a separate topic.
I never loved
But
the name of that they chose, but besides that,
80,000
yeah,
hours, yeah, 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 yeah.
I don't think it gives you
Eh,
anything. But like,
no, but it is catchy, like you'll remember, I guess.
true, that's true.
So they are like a central part of this movement called effective altruism, which I'm not going to get into. But part of the premise is that what makes you happy is getting into, well, there's a couple of components that they say, at least, like how to choose a job that makes you happy. And one of the things is finding a job where you can use skills that you really like using, right? Get into like this flow state. I think
Hmm.
many of us know, right? This flow state of like being challenged just enough that you feel like you're growing, and
Yeah.
but you're not like overwhelmed, and but you feel like you're doing something that you're good at and all these things. And then things like having a good working environment, like, you know, liking the people you work with and so on. But also, and this is kind of like the premise of this thing, is that doing something that helps others in some way and having an impact on the world is really important to people and makes people happy and drives people. And this is how I kind of got into this whole like happiness thing. And you know, I kind of like started questioning why I'm doing the things that I'm doing, because I was like, I thought like, oh, I need a, you know, when I was younger, I thought I needed a Nobel Prize, or like
Yeah.
I needed a million euros or whatever.
That's
And I
funny,
was like,
right?
and
Like I
yeah,
had a very similar feeling of like I needed to accomplish something that had
mm,
like a huge impact on a lot of people, and then
mm,
you realize that, I mean, you might want, but like it's not mandatory. Then otherwise
mm.
that becomes pressure, and that doesn't make you live stress free, right? Like because
Yeah, and I think we'll talk about it in a second. But why, you know, you start questioning why you want the things that you think you want. And I think for the Nobel Prize and all these things, I think in the end it's about recognition from others, right? I mean, a lot of it. It's not all of it. I think it can also be feel nice to have influence without people recognizing your influence. Like, you know, there's like anonymous donors and all these
yeah.
things. I mean, people like putting their
And they
name on
say,
stuff for
right, there's
sure.
a research that says, if you're the anonymous donors experience more happiness than the ones that are recognized. I'm always, when I read these things, I'm like, probably, but what, like that also, the reason behind it, I think it's very interesting because I mean, immediate, how can I put it? Like the immediate feeling I have when I hear that is like, yeah, they experience more feeling because they're like, they know something others don't know, right? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
you know, when they're
yeah,
feeling
yeah,
like I did something and I feel even better because it's like it
yeah,
adds
yeah,
that
yeah.
cherry on top. So the reasoning is not
Also, yeah, yeah. I don't think. I think we don't. We also don't
altruism
know
is
who
a
they
big
tell.
topic, actually, by the way.
Yeah, because you know, even if let's say they give like a $1 billion to like a hospital and they don't put their name on it, even though I think a lot of philanthropists do put their name on it, right? You there's a lot of
Yeah,
hospital wings that are called
yeah,
after some rich person donating money to it, and I think people like the recognition. But also, I think even if they don't put their name on it, they probably brag a little bit to their friends. You know, they're like, "Oh, you know this like hospital wing that just got $1 million? Secret. This was my money." You know, like I think they'll
yeah.
tell
But then
someone.
people might be like, yeah, I don't know, should I
Yeah.
trust that guy? But then on the other end, you go to bed and you feel like, yeah, I did that, and on top of
Mm.
it, I didn't even like
Yeah,
have
for
the
sure.
recognition. It's like it becomes like a game of even higher status because I didn't even do that, right?
Yeah. There's this Friends episode. Did you watch Friends? I
A
forgot.
bit.
Yeah, there's this Friends episode where Joey says to Phoebe that there's no selfless good deeds. That every good deed that you think is selfless actually makes you feel good,
Mm.
and that's why it like negates the selflessness. So yeah,
Although I think there is like a short version of it, like a small part of it. Like sometimes you really do things without rationally thinking, okay, I'm doing it for some other reason. Like you generally have this drive to do something and you don't even think about it and you do it. And then after you realize, oh, I did it and I didn't want anything in return, anything at all. But like
yeah,
it's you really need to, I think it's connected to like you really need to care about what you're doing for the sake of doing it, then you really don't think about other reasons behind it. Like if you help somebody because you really care about the person, of course you don't want anything in return. You don't want the person to like um, come back to you later and say thank you. Like you just do it because you feel like you have to, not because it's a duty, your duty, but it's more because you feel like you really feel like you have to. But it's rare, I think. I mean, at least for
yeah,
me. But yeah.
yeah. It's like, you know, I mean, I think I mean, it's a complex topic, and I think we should probably get back on track. But
Yeah.
I'm thinking about, will you give to a homeless person? You know, like sometimes you give change to a homeless person. Will you also put it into their head when they're not looking, right? Um, and because even in front of a homeless person, you want them to acknowledge that you
Maybe
did
you
something.
do, right? But even
Yeah,
there, there's the same problem of like the anonymous donor. Like you then walk away feeling like, oh, I helped the person, But then there's also part of it where it's like, oh, I'm a good person because I did so. And I
Yeah,
think
yeah, for
that
sure.
piece is like unnecessary, but you have
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
And
yeah, for
in
sure.
the end, like if this drives being more generous for people, like so be
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like there's many
Yeah.
things that are
I mean, I
worse.
think it's getting very philosophical, and
Yeah.
probably we should
Yeah,
get
yeah,
back on
it's
track.
fine.
Do you know the concept of intoku? I don't know where I got
No,
it from.
in Toku?
I think it's called intoku. Maybe it's like a. Let me check it out. Uh, yeah, it is this.
Okay.
It's like a Japanese tradition, and it means good done in secret. So
Mhm.
something that you do for someone else secretly. Let's say some random person that has nothing to do with you, like let's say you're on vacation and you see like their doorstep is dirty, you clean their doorstep, and then you just move on. And they'll never see you again. Um, so this is actually I put it in my personal mission statement to like try to do it every once in a while
I had it, and
because it's
as a
yeah
daily habit for a while, like do something
yeah
that people don't even. But then,
yeah that's the
but
thing.
then it becomes a job, and then again, you're like
Yeah, yeah, for
forcing
sure.
yourself.
It's in the end, it's a lot of it is vanity too, because like you're telling yourself you're
Yeah,
such a great person, and then yeah. Anyway, let's get back to the
but
video.
to say this is one of like it's considered to be not by us but by many like one of the pillars of happiness, right? Like doing things for
Yeah,
others, helping others. So that makes
yeah,
sense.
for sure. And I think it does feel good, right? Like if you can, if you, I think also the influence, right? Like let's say you teach something to someone, and you realize that they can apply it and then change the world. You're like, oh, I contributed. It feels
Yeah, and
great,
then
right?
again, it's me. I can,
Yeah, yeah, of
but
course, of
yeah,
course.
that's true.
But I noticed it recently, and we're not really getting back on track. But like I noticed it recently because, for example, I wrote some scientific papers, and I'm much more proud of the ones that get cited by other scientists. And I'm like, oh, nice, they read my
Right.
paper. I had influence on them, right? And then, for example, my PhD thesis was way more work than all my papers, but no one cited it, so I don't even know how many people read it. So I have like zero pride in my
You
PhD
had no
thesis.
no crowd for it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, but it's like 200 pages. Obviously, no one reads it. But then I wrote this article that was like, I don't know, maybe it's 10 pages or something. And it took me like a few weeks to write, much less than the PhD
Mhm.
thesis. But it was cited by like, I don't know, 50 other
Wow. Okay.
scientists, like somewhere in the world. And I'm like, oh, I influenced 50 other
Yeah.
scientists. And it feels really
But I
good,
mean,
right? And
there's a part of it which is it makes sense that you feel it because it's also what drives a lot of like progress and
yeah,
making
for sure.
things
Yeah.
happen, right? Like we're and that also I think connects to the another important aspect, which is like we're made to be around others and connected to others. So
Yeah.
this influence that you talk about like makes a lot of sense. Like that, it does good in it. That's my point.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm not saying there isn't. I think like what we're trying to get at is what makes us happy, and
Yeah.
the question that that is always not always, but like sometimes the question is phrased that if you're if you're 80 and like you think back on your life, like what makes you proud, what you're most happy about, and this is actually something that they do in these happiness studies, which we're going to talk about, is to ask them what are the things that really made you that you're really proud of now if you think or reflect back on your life. And usually it's not these things. Usually it's not the big deal they got for their company or the $1 million they made. Maybe they have some pride in it, but I think at least what the research is showing is that most of the pride comes from the relationships they build, the families they build, the how much they help someone else, and all these things,
Yeah,
right?
and I want to say, sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but like,
Yeah,
there's one thing I want to get off my chest here. So I I watched that video and I keep hearing this thing about like, money is not really the thing, and I agree. But and I think it's connected to the results of the studies they did. So I want to just go straight to at it and say, like, I think money is the tool. So yes, it's not the end goal, is not the thing that makes you more happy or less happy, but is a huge leverage, is a huge tool to speed up and improve your happiness level if you use it wisely.
yeah,
And
I think that's a big if. Yeah,
yeah, but you don't have to be consumed by it and used by it.
yeah, yeah,
But on the other hand, if you leverage it wisely, like it really helps you, like even the helping thing, right? Just what we just discussed. if you have money, you can help way more people and have
For
way
sure,
more
for sure.
impact, right?
Yeah, like I mean, I look at very rich people, and sometimes I think, okay, this is what I would do, and sometimes I'm like, okay, I don't want to become like this person. I think some people get really obsessed and vain and like really full of themselves and like narcissistic, and lose touch with reality. I think we all saw what happened to Elon Musk. I still look up to him because like Elon Musk is a super
Yeah.
inspiring person. But I think we all are seeing what power does to people, and I think he becomes more and more detached from reality. Same for Donald Trump and all these people, right? Like, but other people don't. I think like like you can say whatever you want about Bill Gates, but he seems to be pretty calm and like actually using his money to like do good. At least that's what it seems like to me. Like to
I think he's
he
really
spends money
good
on.
at you. He's like public persona
Yeah, I mean
impact.
he's still hated by a lot of people, but yeah, I mean,
Mm,
regardless, I think there's probably also some really rich people that do these things more secretly,
yeah.
but it's hard to know. Yeah, um, but yeah, I mean, maybe we go right into this. I think we can talk about what makes us happy after, and talk about the study that the video
Hmm.
talked about. So, just a little bit of backup or like a synopsis of the study. So I think it's the longest running study on of any depth in like humans ever. I think it's a study that
What was it?
was started
85
in
years, something like that.
85
Oh,
years. Yeah, so it's a study that started in 1938, and it actually in the beginning was two studies, both by researchers at Harvard University, and one of them followed like college students at Harvard, and one of them followed like some middle schoolers in Boston, and then they followed them their entire lives basically, and then in the end they included their spouses and children and families, family members, and so on. And I think it started with like 700 people, and it ended up being like 3,000 people. And what was
yeah.
really funny also, like it ended up including, for example, JFK, like the president of the
Yeah.
United States that was assassinated, and like two Nobel Prize laureates and so on. So like
I was like,
it
that
was
was
such,
lucky.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's also like it's Harvard
Yeah.
students, right? And people from Boston. So it is definitely I mean, I think like the middle schoolers were of like more poor families, but still a poor family in Boston is much more
So you think you're already saying it's a little bit biased?
it's for sure it's a
Yeah.
little bit biased. I think in the beginning it was all white men,
Hmm.
right? So
Yeah.
so definitely already it's biased, but it's 1938, so it became less and less biased over time. But still, I think like there's probably, I didn't read the study, I just know it from the video, but probably there's very few people of color in the study, and also it's only Americans, right? So who knows how much it applies to other countries and so on, because like different countries, different cultures, and I think like it might be different what makes people happy in different cultures. I think because like we value different
I
things
guess the
differently.
baseline will be similar. We're all humans, but yes, I agree that
Yeah, yeah.
like
But I think like
culture.
there's definitely cultures
Yeah.
where family is much more important than in other cultures, and all these things, right?
Yeah.
But I think in general, like
But
we all
then the
want human
question,
connection.
should it? Like, I mean,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a different question. I think, but I think there's some innate things, and then there's some learned things, like everything. I think some things we learn through culture. If a culture really respects a certain type of job, let's say, if you get that job, probably it will give you some satisfaction. Versus if in another culture this job is really despised, if you get that job, probably like you're. I mean, let's say one country really like uh, reveres prostitutes,
yeah,
but another country really like says prostitutes are super dirty and so on. Like you could in one country feel great that you're a prostitute, and in another country you feel
yeah.
really ashamed that you're a
There
prostitute,
are.
right? So there's
You
some
want
cultural.
another couple of examples? Like, in Italy we have this thing where,
Wait, you're Italian? I thought you were British.
yeah, don't you hear from my accent? So there's this thing of like, I think it's happening kind of everywhere in the Western world, but more Italy has always been on the forefront of that. Teenagers, like, after when you become an adult, like it's harder to leave your home nest because
Hmm.
the family thing has always been big here, and
Yeah.
so this, you could say, has an impact on self-fulfillment, because you basically, not control, because that's not the word, but you're definitely way more influenced by your family in your
Yeah, yeah.
choices, because you're not living by yourself and you can take all the decisions of the
Yeah,
everyday life.
yeah.
And also you can say about a country where work is really not too meritocratic. I'm not saying Italy is, by the way, but but it's like where you really have a situation where like it's hard to break through and to build a career quickly. There's the example of the US where like if you're young but you have the skills, you can go wherever you want very fast.
Mm-hmm.
In Europe, it's a bit different. There's a lot of like obstacles, I think, especially Southern
Mm-hmm.
Europe. I think Northern Europe, again, is very meritocratic. But then generalizing here, but the point is that this could actually have a huge impact, right? And so the culture and environment you're in have a huge impact on happiness, I think. And so learning what are the differences and how you can change this, that also is important, I think.
Yeah, so I think culture definitely influences, our decision making for sure. I don't. So I think there's probably like common, there's common drivers. If you really boil them down to first principles, there's common drivers into what we do to be happy. And I think, for example, the example I had of the prostitute, but it could be whatever. Like, let's say in one country, I think maybe this is a good example because, like, I think in Europe, being a soccer player is super masculine and like people really like adore soccer players. But I think in the US, it's more like the football, basketball players that are super like
Yeah.
adored. But soccer players are more like, it's like a sport for girls more. It's not exactly like this, but it's a little bit like that. So I think like in the end, why do we want to become a soccer player? Probably because of the money and the appreciation we get from others for doing it. I think those are important parts of the decision.
So
Like you,
that opens another, like, I think, big question, which is, where do you put status in happiness?
yeah, I think yeah, we can talk about status for sure. Yeah,
Because
um,
the point there is, we said like there's something good in it. Like the reason why it exists is that like it really like can be of a motivation, right? Like a bit of a driver to do things.
hmm
Uh,
hmm
the 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 goal of like reaching a specific status, but then that can quickly turn into like a quest for itself, and then you like lose touch on what other things that matter, right?
yeah, it's a slippery slope because status is the same as like getting likes on Instagram and whatnot. It's like it's so tied to the circumstances that once you lose it, you'll be more unhappy than you were before. Same
Mm.
as money, right? Because it's something you can lose much more easily than building really healthy habits in your life. That's something you won't lose as quickly as all the money in a financial crisis or like all your status because I don't know, some crisis will make you lose all your status. Like just look at people that were like super revered by people, and then they had some scandal. Like I don't know, these some famous people that were in like a sexual harassment
Hmm.
crisis
Hmm.
or a scandal, and then suddenly no one likes them, and then they take their life, right? So
Yeah, there's one aspect though, like because that you raise a great point, which is the lack of control that we have over life, right?
yeah,
Which in turn, like the problem there is that yes, we do have a lot of lack of control over many things, and so then the point is like it's not, there are this series of sentences on like it's not the goal, it's not the destination, it's the journey, which I agree on. Like the
oh
point
yeah,
is
definitely agree. I
life
think that's a
cycle,
very
life is,
important one.
it works in cycles, and if you're lucky the cycles are nicer, if you're not they're worse. But then it's about adapting to it and like making the most of it. And again, that's a philosophy, which is like focus on the present, don't ruminate on the past, don't be afraid of the
Of the
future,
future,
and
yeah.
just focus on what you have at hand and enjoy, like live it fully, because it doesn't come back, and you have a finite time on in life, and all these things I think are good. But then there's the practical aspect of it, like, okay, yes, I got it, it is all true, should focus on the present, should not think about the past, not think about the future. I want to do something, right? And I think here's where these areas where like everybody has their own philosophy and way of seeing things and seeing life. I think for me, the main takeaway, the main say approach that I shift that I had in the past 10 years, a bit less, was I saw the meaning of it in we were shifting from happiness to meaning of life. But yeah, I saw the meaning of it
Yeah.
in incremental progress steps, like consistency and like being able to every day do a step forward, and for the sake of it. Again, there's no goal, there's no like, oh, I reached the peak. No, there's no peak. But it's more of like, it's the experience and the challenge and the adventure of saying, today I want to do a bit more of this. And then the problem I have personally is like I get too obsessed. So this like I want to do more is like I need to do more, which is the problem. But like
Mm.
everybody has their own thing, right? But at least I'm very confident for myself. I'm not saying it applies to everyone, that this like constant strive to be better, to improve, it gives me joy, right? Like it gives me satisfaction, and it's
Yeah,
great.
I see that. I think maybe you're mixing up two things, because I think the constant chase for improvement, which I definitely have, and I think we both have, and a lot of people have. I still think this is something that is dopamine driven,
Mm,
in a sense that we always want something more, and I think this is the same reason that people get addicted to things. And you can be addicted to, to getting better in the gym or in life or whatever. And I think maybe you and I are. I don't know. But I think there's a separate skill that can be cultivated, that is appreciating what is, without having to get better.
great point.
And I think that one is a much more lasting tool for happiness, because no matter your circumstances, if you can train your mind to get into a state of, I love what is, no matter what it is. And I think we should do a separate episode on meditation and mindfulness and all these things, and like appreciation for what is, and not thinking about what we want, because in the end, this is the growing thing that we both have, is like, it's something that we want.
Yeah.
But I think the other side of this is appreciating what we have
It's a balance.
already.
I agree. But
It's a
then you
balance.
can't really, because if you follow one of the two only, then I don't think you end up in the right place. Because yes, appreciation for what you have, and like be mindful. It's
Mhm.
again, to me, another tool. It's,
Yeah, I think maybe progress is one of the needs that we have, that we want
I
to
mean, this is
fulfill.
not me and you. It's everyone, right? Like I think
Yeah,
it's
I think, I don't know, maybe hard to say. I think there are
it's in
definitely
human
some
nature,
people that
no? I think so.
probably, I think some people are more like it than others. I mean, I maybe I don't really understand the thinking of people that, there are monks that just sit in the grass all day long for years and meditate and like appreciate the beauty of nature and all this stuff, which I think sounds nice, but also doesn't sound like me at all. But I don't know if it's not the meaning of life. I don't know. But yeah, I think we're digressing a little
No,
bit
but
from
because they're
the
connected, they're
subject.
so connected. But yes, it's the same for me. Like I need to do
Like,
something.
you can truly be in the moment, and like, I don't know, when I'm like, when I do the things that make me get into a transcendental state. And I think we're getting very philosophical, and probably we should do another one on that, because this is more like spiritual. But like, if I'm surfing or hiking or dancing, and these things that like really make you forget who you are,
Yeah.
meditating also, like, you forget who you are, and you're so much in the moment that you don't care about it being good or bad, or like you progressing or something. It's more about like, you feel so connected to the universe. I know it sounds really,
No,
really,
but it's
really
true. And
esoteric,
no,
but yeah.
I feel you and I agree. But then that piece is like, it's another. It's not like dopamine, but it's again momentary effect. Like you have it there. Like when you experience the
But
flow.
I think you can train these feelings to be more lasting and more
Yeah.
permanent. And I don't think you can be like in the state of bliss like 24/7, but I think you can train yourself to get into the state more easily. And but I think this is the more spiritual side of mindfulness and being in the present. And I think we should probably talk about it on a separate occasion, because
True.
like, we're not, yeah,
But then
we didn't
again,
even
this
talk about the study
it
at
is
all.
true. It is true. But
Yeah,
but then this. But I think it's interesting. Like
it's definitely
the
interesting.
thing is, if everyone were to do what the monks do, then life would be very different. So then,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
where like would we be saying all this is useless, because that's kind of the take, right? Like, oh, progress, innovation, technology, going to another planet, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
um improving, like, make increase your lifespan, like all these things then are useless, right? We better like go
Yeah,
back
no,
to where we
I
were.
see what you're saying. I think this is getting very philosophical. I think it's a super interesting conversation, but it's not the conversation we wanted to have today. So
Yeah.
maybe let's talk about what the study found. So the study was run for now 85 years, and I think it's an ongoing thing. I don't know how long they want to do it. And basically, I think there's like three big things that the study considers. I
Mhm.
mean, there's many things that contribute to happiness, but I think the three big ones are taking care of your body,
Yeah.
health, the physical health. So this is often, the big ones are like exercise, nutrition, sleep, and so on, right? And we talk. This
Yeah.
is something you and I talk about a lot, right? Because like taking care of your physical health is extremely correlate with your mental health, and I think we both know this. And like I think it's very, I think scientifically very sound, and I think many people know this, even though not everyone acts on it, because I think people don't realize how much really they influence each other. Um, then the second one, I think, which is the biggest one that they talk about, is relationships. The fact that really at the end of your life, the biggest, and this is also like influencing your health, right? So they found that people that are, this is super interesting stuff actually. They found that people, the biggest predictor for your health at age 80, when looking at you at age 50. So they take some measurements of your life at age 50, and they try to correlate it to your mental and physical, but mostly physical well-being at age 80. And the
Okay.
biggest predictor for the physical health isn't your cholesterol levels or your inflammation levels or your, if you smoke or not and all these things, which you would think, right? Like it's actually the health of your relationships at age 50 that predict your health, your physical health at age 80, which I think is fantastic. It's a fantastic finding. And
Yeah.
we talk about these blue zones a lot, and this is more like on longevity and stuff, but apparently uh, relationships are among the best predictors for longevity, which I think is a super interesting takeaway. Because, and this is something that I recently think about a lot, is that I think people more and more realize that they need to take care of their bodies to be happy and healthy and all these things. And like everyone knows that you need to, you need to put in effort to have a healthy body. Like you need
Yeah.
to eat well, you need to go to the gym. Obviously not everyone does it, but I think most people are aware of it at least. But I think very few people treat their relationships like this. I think people don't think, okay, today I need to work on my relationships for 1 hour. You
Completely
know?
agree. I think this is
Yeah.
one of, and it's been lately. It's funny because lately I've been looking into that a lot, reading
Hmm.
into about it, and yeah, we would need like a gym for relationship. Like a place where it's not just, and again, it goes back to the point of incremental steps. It's not one thing that you like do. You focus, you do full immersion, like of 1 day or 2 days into relationship, and then you like get out of it with better
Hmm.
relationship. No, you can't really
Yeah.
do that, right? It's a thing that is constant, and then you have to
Exactly.
uh,
Same as the gym. You can't just like work out for 1 month and
right.
then be like, "Oh, it's done. I'm now good. I'm now healthy forever." No, it's the same for relationships. They're not there forever. Like you have to cultivate them.
Yeah, but there's this
And
feeling of like, oh, they go the way they go. You know what I mean? Like a bit.
yeah, but that's bullshit. And
Yeah,
I think,
yeah,
yeah.
agreed.
I mean, one of the reasons I'm doing this podcast with you is because I want to spend more time with the people that I
Yeah,
appreciate and that I care about, right? So
same
it's
here. Yeah.
oh. But for example, this
But
is
it's
a good example.
conscious, right? It is conscious. It's a conscious
For sure,
effort,
for sure.
and
But I was someone for the longest time that took my relationships for granted, and they do wither away. Like if you don't invest time, at some point, other people, your friends, if you don't invest time in them, they will stop investing time in you, and
yeah,
so on. And I realized that, I got very frustrated with one of my really really old friends here, and then I was like, oh, why isn't he, investing more time into our relationship? And then I was like, at one point, I just decided, okay, maybe I need to put more time. Maybe he didn't invest time because I wasn't investing time or
yeah.
something.
That's the thing. It's so easy to like look at the
To
others
blame
and
others,
say,
yeah,
yeah, they're
yeah,
not doing this. Why they're not calling? But then the reality of it is, it's sometimes the perception. This is the problem of perception, right? Like everybody has their own life, the things they do,
Yeah,
and sometimes you just need to do the first step, and that goes a long way also.
for sure. I think also, and I think this, we already talked about this in the other episode, that modern life kind of makes certain things worse, and I think human
Mm.
interaction is one of them, because like I think we get more and more, at least in my world, I don't know how it is in your world, but I think people get more and more individualistic and more focused on their own problems and goals and stuff. And I think technology makes us on the surface more connected, but I think deep down it makes us more disconnected, because we spend more time physically with others, sorry, less time physically with others, more time maybe electronically, which I think doesn't really have the same quality of interaction. And so my friend, I texted him the other day and I was like, hey, what are you doing this weekend? Do you want to do something? And he's like, and I understand, like, he has reasons not to be able to. He says, no, I have to, I have a Christmas thing with my workplace, and then my kids are sick, and then I have to, I have to like be with my kids, and then I have to do this for work and that for work. And I was like, okay, but you didn't give me an alternative. You're not saying like, hey,
Yeah.
how about this day? He just says he can't, and I get so pissed. I was like, yeah, okay, like you can't, but you never want to see me, because like
Right.
it's been going on for a while. And then I just decided, okay, I can now get unhappy about it and like be pissed at him, or I just tell him. So I actually did call him the next day. I was like, hey, are you currently like with your kids? And he's like, yeah, I'm with my kids. I can't really leave. And I was like, okay, I'll come by. So I came by, and he was like so happy that I came by. So, and I think this probably improved our relationship a little bit. It's
Communication,
something.
that's not, yeah, that's
Yeah,
part of it, right? I think it's so easy to not, I guess it's because of, sometimes because of fear of like, not fear of rejection, but in a way, or fear of like not being understood. But
yeah, yeah,
communicating the way you feel about something, it goes a long way, and it's an effort. It doesn't come so, it's not an instinct you have, like, oh, I'm gonna open up and say, oh, this thing I didn't like,
yeah,
what you did, or, and many times in relationship, that's the problem. I think the source
for
of all
sure.
problems is like, you don't communicate the small things, and then they
Mm,
stack up, and then they become
yeah,
this huge thing of like miscommunication, and both might have the right feeling about it, like the right attitude
mm,
and motivation, but then you end up in completely different ways because you don't communicate. And again, it's one another thing where you should do the first step. I think, like, the point, like
yeah,
I tell myself, right, like, do the first step, because many times that clears the path, and
yeah,
you
yeah,
resolve a lot of, and there's another aspect which again gets a bit not philosophical, but the more you age, the harder it is to create connections. And so
yeah,
there's
for sure.
another aspect of like, you should take care of the ones you have because of that, meaningful connections, right?
Yeah,
And and so and it's also easier to miscommunicate them. I think the feeling I have, like, looking at, my grandparents, I was seeing in the past, like, the way there's a reason, like, there's an aspect which is like, health issues. So a lot of their friends were like getting sick, or they passed away, so you start losing friends at some point, but
yeah,
later on, hopefully. But the point is that, you kind of like also get too close in your, as you said, like, in your life perspective, life situation, and
mm,
it becomes, it's like sort of inertia, where you don't do the things because you're used to not do the things and not communicate,
yeah,
and then this like grows into like isolation in a way. I was
yeah.
yeah, it's from the study, right? It was talking about the fact that like UK has created, like, that was funny when I heard it.
The minister of
Yeah,
loneliness,
yeah.
right? Yeah. Yeah, that is really funny. And loneliness is apparently, yeah, that's what they talked about. Also, there's like a big epidemic of loneliness, and loneliness is actually a predictor for deteriorating mental and physical health. Apparently, it's like it's a predictor of dementia, it's a predictor of heart disease, it's a predictor of stroke, and all these things, which are crazy. And I think the reason is that, and this is what they said in the video, is that relationships act as emotional regulators. So if because everyone gets into stressful situations, be it being stuck in traffic can be stressful, but also like losing your job and like losing a loved one. Let's say you lose like a family member, like maybe one of your parents dies, and if you're alone and you don't have any friends, you just sit on this pain for weeks and years. But if you have like a partner or like good friends that can like give you a hug and be there for you, hold your hand, and like they will decrease your stress hormones, and this will reduce inflammation in your body, and in the end, aside from the obvious effects on mental health and emotional health, it will decrease these contributors to bad health, like the cortisol and all the other stress hormones will stay more elevated if you're lonely, and in the end you will live longer if you have strong relationships. And this is actually something really cool that the study found, is that married people, and this obviously it's about being in a happy supportive marriage, and not stuck in a bad relationship, but married men apparently live 12 years longer
Yeah.
than unmarried men, and I think married women live 7 years longer. And this goes into other aspects of like men not being able to have good relationships, and I think women definitely are better at relationships than men. That's my opinion, at least. But it's a better deal for men, because I think men don't take care of themselves as well when they're alone versus with a partner.
Right.
So this is super interesting. But just one thing before I stop my little speech here. What I found interesting is that the fact that we do live longer when we're in a marriage. But then you said something that made me think why a lot of people, I think, are so scared of marriage, is that if you put all your eggs in this basket, on the same for like relationships, right? If you
Yeah.
like friendships, if you just have like 3 friends, really close friends, but you forget how to make new friends, once the friendship dies for whatever reason, even like the person could die, but also maybe you have a fight or you get divorced or whatever it is, you will kind of like fall into this hole where like you have no one to replace this role, this emotional regulator for you, and then suddenly you feel even more lonely than you were before.
Yeah.
You were, because like this really important person like falls away. And I think also that's why countries where usually the community is very large, I'm thinking mostly of like Southern Europe, for example, compared to Northern Europe. I think there's much less depression in Southern Europe than Northern Europe, because like the families
Yeah.
are bigger, and I think a lot of times in these blue zones, or
There's also
are
the
they called
physical
blue?
contact.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
And like I think like these multi-generational households, as stressful as they sound to me, I think they have the benefit that there's always someone there for you, and I think this is really great. And I think the northern countries in Europe, and like uh, Western countries more than not Western countries, I think is like they're very individualistic. People like to live alone. People don't spend time with their grandparents as much, and so on. And in like I don't know, Spain and
Yeah,
probably
it's.
Italy
I
also,
think it's
like
a balance thing, right? Like because this thing of multi generational houses, like definitely they have a very positive impact. But then the
yeah.
problem is that, as we said before, that could be stifling in a way. Like you could,
Also, for
right?
sure, it's
So,
it's about balance
so
as
it's about
always.
balance, and also you have the there was mentioned in the study, right? You have the introvert extrovert approach to life, which
Yeah,
is
yeah.
real. There's a clear difference, and there's a Simon Sinek, I think, the motivation coach. He was saying how I think he had a nice analogy of like introvert people. They start their day, every interaction they have, they spend a token, and then they get to the end of the day, spend if like they had a lot of
Yeah,
interaction.
yeah.
Extrovert people, it's the opposite. Every interaction they have, they gain a token. So if they
Uh-huh.
don't have interactions, they feel spent. If they
Yeah,
had
yeah,
a lot of,
yeah.
so that really it puts really in perspective like how people are different, and so your balance is if everyone has their own balance. But then I guess the impact is there's this sense. I think it gives you, going back to the Maslow pyramid thing. It gives
Hmm.
you this sense of belonging, in a way safety. I don't know if you feel it, but like when I'm out, like, and I'm out with like one person is one thing. When I'm out with 5 people, right,
Hmm.
there's this sense of like not
You're
try.
you're invincible, right? You feel like you
Yeah,
can do
you feel
anything.
like you enough people that like, not that you can do anything, of course not, but like that you feel like I feel this relaxation feeling, like it's
For
real,
sure,
it's
yeah.
tangible for me.
Also, like when you do like stupid things in public or something, you feel less stupid when you're with people. Like,
Right.
let's say you do have like a challenge with your friends where you go up to someone and
Right.
say something stupid, like as a joke, or like maybe like you go hit on a girl or something. If you have someone to come back to, if it goes badly, it just feels much safer.
Right.
Like, right, you go hit on a girl, but you're alone at the club, and then she rejects you. You're just like this weirdo.
Yeah,
But if
true.
you go back to your group of friends and everyone laughs and gives you a high five, then you feel like, oh, at least I tried.
It reduces the stress of like, will this be accepted in the community? Because yeah, you have
Exactly,
your own
because like
yeah,
someone accepts you. Exactly, yeah, that's probably a good
yeah,
one. Like, as long as you go back to someone that does accept you, no matter what you
you're
just
good.
did, you
Yeah.
don't feel as bad. Yeah.
And there's another aspect which is the I think it's connected to the self-esteem thing. So there's a study, I don't remember the name, but basically they claim that everyone can keep a connection, some sort of connection with up to 150 people. They kind of like study
Mhm.
and realize that that's the number, right? Of
The
course.
logistical limit.
Right. I think that's
Yeah.
you at some point, like you can't really, unless you spend your day like just talking to people. But then again,
Well, it depends on the quality of connection, because like people think they have 60,000 friends on
right.
Instagram. That means that they have 60,000
So
friends,
then
which
the
they don't.
metric, the vanity metric is a big piece here. So the
Yeah.
point is that you need like some a number which could be put not that big of like very close solid relationships, and then the rest there's some like different layers of it, right? Like you have like the super
Mm.
close friends, and then you have like acquaintances, and then you have like the kind of like farther. But it's true that you need variety. I think that's the
Mm.
point. Like yes, probably the most influential in your happiness level is like your relationship with close friends, and if you can like family, right?
Mhm,
uh,
mhm.
but then but then you need variety of others, because then the problem of like only have the close friends is that you experience, I think it's sort of like too close of an environment where you need external influences a bit, and you need communications that are not always of the same kind with the same people, because then you know that connects to the other point of like you are the average of the five people you spend the most time with. It's true. So
Yeah,
I think there's a variety, and again, it's a balance thing, right?
I
um,
think it's also about I think it's a little bit about diversification. Also in the sense of not only in the sense of types of stimuli, but also because you're always at risk of losing a friend. It's good to always have like a. I mean, it sounds a little bit like maybe too objectifying, but of having a pipeline of new friends. Potentially. I think this is also why it's maybe easier to be an extrovert, because an extrovert can make a new friend more easily than an introvert. If an introvert loses one of their two or three friends, it's a really big impact, versus an
yeah,
extrovert that
it's
can just like,
about the ability, I guess, of like
yeah.
making new ones when you want.
So yeah, I think we talked about exercise and relationships, but maybe we should go back to the elephant in the room, which is
Yeah.
money. So I think a lot of people implicitly think money will make them happy, and I think a lot of the decisions we take on a daily basis, at least in my bubble that I live in, but I think it's probably true for most countries and communities and cultures in the world, is that we uh, we're pursuing money. Money is like, in some way, money is like the experience points of this video game that we call life,
Yeah.
right? So we think that because it's also like it's a way to measure progress. I think this is also why people look at money, because it's like the score you have in life, in a way, because there's nothing else you score yourself on. um I just noticed I have a hole in my crotch.
I guess there are
Anyway,
I,
funny.
I guess there
Yeah,
are I guess there are like other metrics people use, right? Like,
yeah. I
do they
mean,
have a
but it,
family?
it
Do
is
they
it
have
is the it
yeah,
is an easy, like, it's a number, right? It's a
it
number, and then
starts early enough. That's one
people like
point.
looking at metrics. Like, it's
Yeah.
like, if I go to the gym, I love looking at, maybe, I mean, you could look at your weight as the metric, but also like how much you bench, how much you squat. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a number. People like numbers. People like being like, oh, I can squat five
Because it's a
kilos more than you.
comparison, right? In a way, it
Yeah,
goes back
exactly.
to
More
that.
than you, more than myself
Yeah.
in the past, and you
Yeah.
feel like you're making progress. Like, I have like $1,000 more in my bank account than last year.
Right.
I feel like I made progress, and this goes back to the progress thing. But also, there are a bunch of studies on money and happiness, uh, and I think there's this really famous one that I think everyone knows because it's cited all the time, which is this like
Yeah.
75K study. So just a quick summary. It's a study by Deaton and Kahneman, Kahneman. I don't know what you pronounce his name. Um, and basically, they said there's a more or less linear relationship with income and happiness up to like 75K per year, like $75,000 per year, which of course, and then also I think you have to also look at wealth versus income, because like you could also make very little and but also sit on 100,000
And
euros
inflation,
or
I
something.
think that
And
that
yeah,
study is
of course, yeah. I mean, yeah, that's another thing. I don't know how much 75K would be today, compared to back then. I don't know. I don't know if it was inflation adjusted 75K
Mm.
or I don't know. Anyway, so there's this really famous study, and it's cited a lot to say that money can't make you happy. And I think there's a certain logic into this in this number. I mean, and we should also say this is 75K in the US, right? And obviously it depends so much on like the
Yeah,
cost of living
yeah.
and where you are and so on. But the premise is that if your basic needs are taken care of, uh, above that amount will not make you more happy, because it's more about like how you spend your time versus obviously you're less happy when you don't have enough money to eat or live in a safe space, and I don't know. But then there's another study by someone called Killingworth, who said that actually there is no plateau.
Mm.
More money will always make you more happy, and this is kind of contradictory. And I think obviously there's a lot of confounding factors, so it's really hard to say, is it
But
really the
I
money
think
that
it's
makes you happy?
sad. Correct me, but I think the point it makes is like, yes, more will make you more happy, but the percent, like the increase of happiness, decreases the more it grows. Right? There was something like that. Is it? I'm not sure.
I think, good question. I think for the second study, no,
Okay.
but maybe. I mean, it could depends on like, is it the same increments of money, or is it like logarithmic or exponential increments?
Yeah,
Like
I'm
I don't
not
know.
sure
Like
what it
I'd have
was,
to
but
look.
I had that.
But apparently, I mean, obviously, they also didn't look at infinitely many more
Yeah.
increments, because it must level out somewhere, right? Like I cannot believe that uh, someone who makes 10,000 becoming, getting suddenly 20,000 will not get much more happiness out of
Right.
it than someone who makes 10 billion or 10 billion and 10,000. There's no fucking way.
Right.
There's no
Right.
way that this like the increments stay the same. So it cannot be.
But yeah, because
Uh,
that this goes back into like it being a tool and what can you do with it and what you can't do with it. And I think those are the two important points. And also like there's
Obviously,
a limit of
if
what
you
how
yeah,
much you can use, right? In a way, like you can say.
yeah, that's true. I think at the end there's, but also, I think you need to learn how to spend your money on the things that truly make you happy versus just vanity stuff, right? Because money can also become a burden, I think.
Yeah, everything you
Um,
do, like spending money is easy, but then like it has consequences. Like
yeah,
this could be funny, but like you buy things, okay, like physical things. Then you have things in your house. Then that's a consequence already. You have to like
yeah,
at some point you become a hoarder. You have too many things, right?
yeah, yeah.
So you have to trust the things. Like that's the most basic consequence. But
This
then
is this is actually a very good point, and this reminds me of this Coursera course, which I don't know if you ever did it. So there's this Coursera Science of
mm,
Wellbeing course.
yeah, and
Do you know it or?
I did it not fully, yeah, but I most of
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
So it's by this professor at Yale. Her name is Laurie Santos, and it's like a really, I think it's a really good course.
Yeah.
And it's been a while, so I don't remember all the details, but she did say that material things actually correlate negatively to happiness, which I think is very interesting. So apparently, the more stuff you buy, the less happy you get, and but the more you spend on experiences, the more happy you get. And I think many of us know this,
Yeah.
but very few people actually act on it, because like, for example, in the US, I know for sure that people, if they have $10,000 to spend, they'll spend it on a car instead of on a vacation. Like, I mean, not everyone, obviously, I'm generalizing, but um, I think for your own happiness, spending it on a trip with your friends or like an activity with your family and so on will make you happier than buying that new gadget, or the buying
Yeah.
a new car or something, unless the car or whatever makes another part of your life easier. If the car
Right.
is used to then see your family more often or something, it will probably
Unless it becomes
hinder
a
it
tool,
well-being.
right? Again, it
Yeah,
goes back to being a
exactly.
tool.
Yeah, exactly.
There was a funny um there was a guy that was saying like he had a good ideas on like how to get rid of physical things, material things you have in your house. He was like, yeah, every Sunday. That's funny. He was like, every Sunday, take like a room, so like
Take a what?
one room of your house,
Room, okay.
and just like start like scanning the room and ask yourself for every item that you see, like a couple of questions, like the two questions that I find very interesting. One was like, in 10 years from now, would you still want this? If the answer is
Hmm.
no, get rid of it. And
Yeah.
the second question was like, would you want to be remembered by this thing? Like
Mhm.
by owning this thing? And
Yeah.
that's another like good one of like, you see how 50 or more, I would say even 70% of the things you have, like you don't really care. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
For
the other
sure.
thing, right?
No, 100%. I think minimalism is another thing that I think about a lot, and actually I currently live in my own apartment. I think for the first time ever. I'm I'm 38 now. I
Hmm.
just turned 38, and I literally for the first time ever have like my own household, and I bought my own furniture for the first time ever. Like I've never bought a fridge, for example. For the first time ever, I bought a fridge and a laundry machine,
Okay.
and this is crazy, but because like uh I always was on the side of like I don't want to buy stuff because I'm moving so much and I don't want to be bound,
Hmm.
like because like things possess you, right? You possess them, but they also possess you. And it makes it really hard to like change your life quickly on a whim's notice.
Right.
And on a whim's notice, you can't say it, on a moment's
I
notice,
don't
on a
know.
whim. But I do feel tied down by all the stuff I suddenly have, and it's actually upsetting me. And I try to like you're trying to make your home kind of like zen and feng shui and like is it
And
am
then
I
and
saying
then and then you buy more things. And
exactly, and it's so stupid. You're like, oh, I want this because it's gonna
let me
make it
get a
more
little
cozy and
plant. Let me get
yeah.
a
I mean, I do like, so
no.
I'm gonna stick up for plants because plants really make me happy. I love plants,
But
but like
then,
in
but
general,
then you
it's
have
like
to take care of them because if they
that
if
is
they
true,
if
that
they
is true.
die, then you feel bad, right? Because
But I have connection to my plants. Somehow, living things make you feel different than dead things. I think like you can have a connection with a
true.
thing, I guess, but like you can also not compare having like a dog and a cat to like having a sofa. I think.
No, but then it's more responsibility because it's a living thing.
For sure, for sure. Like I would never. I don't think I'll ever get a pet. And also, I mean, I have some ethical reservations to pet ownership, but
Mhm.
also because like I like to travel and move so much that it's just. I mean, it's
But
just
then you
too
travel
much.
and then you need to take care of the plants you want. You
That's
naturally.
exactly. I mean, the plants, but if the plants die, I'm like, I'm gonna be okay. But I'm not. I can't suddenly go on a trip for 3 months and just leave my cat. you know? But if I leave my plant, so sure, it's gonna die. But I'm not gonna cry too
Yeah,
much.
but
Or like I gift the plant to someone else or something.
right.
People like plants. What was the point of this?
No, but yeah,
Um,
it's a
oh,
good point.
materialism. Yeah,
Materialism. Yeah.
materialism. Yeah.
It
So
is
I think,
true. There
yeah,
were studies saying like the less things you have, like also starting from your desk when you work, like
yeah.
less stuff you have on your desk, the more you experience mental
Clarity.
freedom and
Yeah.
clarity. Yeah.
I'm so bad at this. Like honestly, because like I really struggle with decision paralysis and decision
Mm.
fatigue. I feel like I have the energy for like 10 big decisions a day, or I don't know what it is. So like I have so much shit on my desk because I can't decide right now where it should go. Or
do
like I'm
you do
like,
you
okay, I have to
prepare
take a
do you
what?
prepare your clothes in the evening before so you don't have to like have that
No, no, I
decision?
don't. I basically always take the first t-shirt. Like I'm actually, but also my wardrobe is super simple. I mean, if you know me, you know that I don't care too much for
Yeah.
fashion. I try not to look stupid, but that's about it. But I just have a pile of t-shirts. They're all basically the same color. They're not exactly the same color, but I basically always take just the top t-shirt, whatever is the top
But
t-shirt. I
then
just
there's
take
an
it.
interesting so there's a philosophy of like everyday life practical
Yeah.
thinking, which I'm following more and more. And there's a book I wanted to read, but then I need to find the time, which is
It's
yeah,
always
it's another thing, thinking in system, I think it's called. So the
yeah, yeah.
idea is that if you build a system, then you don't have to decide anymore. The system
Exactly, yeah.
runs
I
itself.
mean, we both know that systems are good for getting rid of decisions, yeah.
Yeah. So that's that has a really positive impact. And then
But implementing a system itself can cause paralysis because
oh,
depending
that's
on
stress.
yeah,
Yeah. And then when he breaks the system, that's another point. But then you have to take care of something, right?
yeah,
So the other, another thing I wanted to mention is the related to happiness, right? Is one like some months ago, I started thinking, okay, what are the changes I can make to my life that have the biggest impact, can have the biggest impact in free. To me, happiness is connected to freedom of doing what I want when I want, right?
Hmm.
And it's always been like a struggle to like get to the ultimate freedom of like choosing. And so I was
Yeah,
like,
I think we get back to that article about fuck you money, right?
right. There's that. And so the point there was, okay, I started thinking, what are the things that I can do, that I can, there's a feeling that some things cost way more than they do. If you really get into it and like try to find a creative way, that can have the most impact in my everyday life.
I'm not following you.
Like
Things cost more than they do.
the people think that they cost more than they do. Like giving an example, like let's say your struggle is to actually, let's say you don't feel like doing groceries, or
Hmm.
you don't feel like cooking, right?
Hmm.
And this is one of those things that like, it's a little thing, there are bigger problems in life, but like every day you kind of do it, and
Yeah.
you don't want to do it. And so kind of like leaving that to somebody else doing it for you,
Mm.
it actually doesn't necessarily cost that much money that you think. And because there are multiple ways to do it, you don't need a chef, right? You need somebody, but or you just buy things that are healthy enough and that are cooked for, like, you know what I mean. And then you
Mm.
reduce that, and that gives you more freedom because it gives you more time and
Yeah.
time. Yeah. So so this process of thinking like, what are the things that I don't want to do, that I spend time on every single day, that if I can remove, give me more hours, to do more of what I want to do, that I think has a big impact. At least for me, it had a big impact on like happiness.
But then you do really need to spend it on the stuff that makes you happy because,
For
I
sure.
mean,
That's another
no
point.
offense, but sometimes I think you just you're just trying to work more, and then
Yeah, of
sometimes
course. That's
sometimes I
yeah.
wonder if you because like you, I mean, I don't want to get too personal here, but um, you're someone that works a lot, right?
Mhm.
So and you have a lot of projects, which I think is super super cool. But in the end, I wonder what for? Because if you don't spend some of your life on the stuff that really makes you happy, then what are you working for? What is all the money for if you don't,
Yeah,
if you
like the way I completely like it's a thing that I think of every single day. But one feeling I have that like kind of like makes it all go away is when I actually stop, and I'm intentional, is like, okay, I take the time off. uh I experience this like, not ultimate, but like huge freedom of like, okay, I can really decide whatever I want to do, I do it now. And and I have this like good sense of accomplishment. Like I did what I had to do, and now I'm taking this time off, and it's intentional, and I make the most out of it, and I don't really think of, because otherwise I always have the feeling of the thinking of like, oh, could be doing something else, right?
yeah.
And so when I do it, what I'm trying to do is take more of those, more chunks of that time, because I see that has a huge impact. Then in the next days after, when I go back,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, I
repeat.
just think that a lot of people, and maybe you're part of this, maybe you're not, but a lot of people think, oh, I'll do, I want to do all these things and I'll do them once X. Once I have enough money, once I have enough time. And I think a lot of people are just stuck in this, I'll do it whenever this and this happens and make it conditional. And I think a lot of times you can just already start doing it because like um, for example, there's this, in the general model of how, at least here in Germany, but I think in Europe in general, maybe also in the US, less in the US, but also here, also in the US, is that you work until you retire, and then suddenly you have all this free time to do all the things that you want, which I think is kind of dumb because
Yeah, I
like
agree.
you're like 65 or whatever, and suddenly you're supposed to, oh yeah, I'll go skydiving and surfing now. No, you're not.
No,
Like,
the energy is a problem. Yeah,
yeah, and also I think also if you never dedicated any time to hobbies and stuff like that, like you're gonna be lost for ideas. You're gonna be 65 and you're like, I'm super bored. I don't know what to do with my time. But if you actually already have like, let's say, three hobbies you keep cultivating, because I think hobbies are super underrated. I think hobbies are so important. If you really like painting and surfing and dancing and soccer and whatnot, and like you do it all the time, but you don't, you feel like you never have enough time for it, but you cultivate them anyway. Once you like don't have your job, then you know what to do. Like you can keep doing your hobbies that make you happy,
Plus, you get better at it, and if you get better at it, you want to do it more. There's also that,
and
right?
yeah, it's opportunities to experience flow state, which we all
Yeah,
love,
I
right?
think
Flow
it
state is
goes
amazing.
back to like intentionally setting your not goals. I don't want to call them goals, but milestones, like things that you want to achieve in life, because that's the beginning of it, of everything. Because once you have that, that kind of like drives all your decisions. And so, being really intentional, like thinking, like, do you really want something, or is because like it will look good if you do it? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think that has a huge impact, because then you don't chase things that maybe are hard to reach and that require a lot of effort, and you going in the wrong direction because you don't really want them actually.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I think along the lines of what you said before about things not costing as much as you want, I think it can be expanded to, things aren't as hard as you think they are. And this is also true for all the things that you think you can do once you have X amount of money or X amount of time. I think it's more often than not a good idea to already do some of those
Mm.
things right now, because first of all, we none of us knows when they're going to die. We might all die tomorrow, and we this is a little spiritual again or esoteric, but I just listened to this guided meditation by Sam Harris, which I think is fantastic. I told you about it.
Hmm.
And he has these, like, between the meditations, the guided meditations, he has these little bits of philosophical,
Yeah.
snippets. And one of them is, I think it's called The Last Time or something. And it was so impactful for me, not because he said anything new, but he has a way to like put things into words that are like in like a super concise way that make it super mind-blowing to me. And he said this thing, um, whenever you do something, or actually of all the things that you do regularly that you like or don't like, but like
Hmm.
whatever it is, if it's good or positive in your mind, at one point it'll be the last time you do it,
Right.
right? And there's actually this article also on Wait But Why that this guy wrote on how many weeks you
Yeah.
have left in your life. And it really puts stuff in perspective, because you can like make a little grid of the weeks left in your life,
But that
and
can create
it's not that
anxiety,
many,
right? That,
for
yeah.
sure. But also, so when I was listening to this his little recording, he said, whatever it is that you do, be it lunch with your mom, or going for a walk with your best friend, or maybe it's even going to your supermarket at the corner, at some point or other, it will be the last time you
Hmm.
do that
Hmm.
thing. And if whenever you do it, you think this is the last time that I did it. For example, like we both lived back in New York together at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's now been what, 5, 6 years I haven't been back. And maybe I'll never go back, right? It might be that I never go back. And if I knew, like, the last time I was on Broadway or the last time I was on Central Park, if I knew it would have been the last time, I would have appreciated the fuck out of it, right? I would walk in Central Park and like have goosebumps and like be like grinning and like being like, oh, this is so amazing, and
Yeah.
whatever it is, right? Like there's so many amazing things in life. And just when I was listening to this recording, I was just walking, down the street here and in my neighborhood, and it's not, I see this neighborhood every day, but I was like, what if this is the last time I walk on the street? Let's really take in the street. And I was like smiling and like I was like super appreciative of it. And I was like, I don't know, it can definitely give you anxiety also, like what if it's the last time? But with the right frame of mind, you can also be like, this is awesome, like I appreciate this so much, and I'm
Yeah.
just going to appreciate it as much as if it was the last time, and I'm never going to be here again.
Yeah, I think
And
it goes
yeah.
back to the goals thing, like the milestones. Like if you think if you really think through of what you really want to achieve, then you can also be intentional in this and say, okay, you can do everything. There are
Mhm.
things that you won't be able to do, and accepting that is a big part. Because
Yeah.
especially if you're a person that wants to do it all, then you're gonna go against the wall at some point. Like not like figuratively, right? But you're gonna hit a wall, like, and say, okay, you can do everything. And if you try, the problem is that you end up like doing it half baked, and that
Mhm.
also puts stress because you really want to. you think you really want to do all these things, but in reality it's not true. I don't think, my take is, if you think carefully of the things you want and not want, and you ask yourself, like, you follow the trace of whys, like, why you want something, you might figure out that many things are actually vanity achievements and not
Mm-hmm.
really deep inside what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that doesn't look on paper, if you look back, it doesn't look like, oh, my life has been like, history making, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
that doesn't have to, right? And that doesn't make it like less impactful on people around you, and it doesn't even make it less good of a life, or and fulfilling. So that's, I think, I will close with that, like, on my end. Like, I think, and it makes me think I have to revisit, because there's also that, like, you have milestones today, but then in a month time, 2 months time, 1 year, like, these things change. You change what you want, and so that also, I think, should put into perspective, like, yes, striving to get somewhere, it's important, because it gives you drive, it gives you motivation, and to progress. But then you might change your mind, and so you might spend
Yeah.
time on something and then realize, actually, I don't want it anymore. Not that you
Yeah.
didn't want it on the first place, but you just
Yeah.
change your mind. Yeah.
And also, I think, this goes back to what I said. I think you can find out if you really like something by trying it. And let's say you tell yourself, oh, once I have time, I'll start painting. Right? You never painted before,
Yeah.
but why don't you fucking go to a painting class? Like, I mean, it's literally what, uh, 20 minutes, 30 minutes to find a place where you can paint. Actually, I mean, I said it because I went painting the other day. I mean, we painted like pottery, which was super fun. I really loved it. But like, you need to find out for yourself. And I think my point was, like, if you have like 20, 30, whatever many things that you think you want to do someday, do some of them already. First of all, you don't know if you'll ever get to someday. Second of all, maybe you don't want all of them, so try it out. So some of them are not as hard to try or as hard
Yeah.
to do as you think they are. Like, book a fucking painting class, go there. It's two hours of your day. If you don't have 2 hours, then you probably work too much, or whatever it is that takes away from your life to, like, spend 2 hours on a painting class. You do too much of that if
Yeah.
if it's not something that makes you happy. And then you go out of it, you're like, either of two things will happen. You will be like, okay, it's not for me, great, you can take it off your list. Right, do the next thing.
Right.
Or you're like, okay, this was kind of nice, but it can wait. Or it's going to be like, oh my god, this is what I want to do, I want to do it forever, this is the best thing ever.
Why it's so long? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and why did it take me so long to do it? Like, do it already. and and I think another thing that, and this is something you said, is that we might change our minds on stuff. And if I really want to learn how to paint now, maybe I don't want it in 10 years. Why not do it while I want it? Because, like, maybe in 10 years I'm like, oh, I don't need to go
Mm.
paint anymore. Like, because we underestimate how much we will change as a person. I think we talked about it the other day, right? Like, I think we, if you're, but it was like, I don't know where I saw this, but like, if people are asked, no, it wasn't with you, it was with my girlfriend. But if people are asked, how much did you change from the person you were 10 years ago,
Mm.
and they give it a score, they will say, like, I don't know, a score out of 10, or like a percentage. They say like a 5 out of 10 or 50%. I changed 50%, whatever. But if they have to estimate how much they will change in the next 10 years, they always say a much smaller number, because people always have a bias to think that they will stay how they are now,
Yeah.
which is
It's no
not true,
point.
because in 10 years you look back, you're going to be a completely different person, and you just don't appreciate how much you will change. And that's why, like, if you have a list of things you want to try now, do it now. I mean,
Yeah,
at
and it's
least
fine that
at
they
least
will
some of it.
change, right? Like,
Yeah,
that's
it's
not a
fine. Yeah.
problem.
But like, if
They're
you
cycles.
always postpone everything, in the end you're not going to do
Yeah.
anything. And I just want to, like, tell a little anecdote, because I thought it was so funny when my friend told me. So she's in Spain, and she went on a date with this guy, and he was I think it's the funniest story.
Okay.
He was like, oh my god, you're just like me, we have all these goals, and we both like to travel so much. And she likes to travel a lot, she travels a lot. I mean, maybe not as much as you and I, but almost, right? So she's been to a lot of countries, continents, and so on, does a lot of cool things. um and she's like, oh cool, what are some of your dreams or places you want to go, right? And this is in Madrid, so this is in the capital of Spain.
Okay.
And he says, oh, my biggest dream is to go to Rome. And she's like, okay, why don't you go this weekend? Right? Like literally, you can get a flight to Rome from Madrid for like
Yeah.
$20 or $30, like with Ryanair or EasyJet or something. And this is like one of these things where I'm like, it baffles me how much people postpone what they think their dreams are when it's really completely
Yeah, I think
unnecessary.
it's as we said in the beginning, I think it's a muscle. Like it's like with relationship, the same
Yeah,
with
yeah,
like your let's say milestones, the things that you dream. Like the more you like think it's possible, the more you like
yeah,
put in
yeah,
motion things that make it happen. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And the downside of this, and this is like maybe I don't want to get too negative, but like you and I, right? People that have experienced a lot of travel and places and cultures and experiences. There's a level of what is called hedonic adaptation, right? This is also
Yeah.
something I took from the well-being course, which is the more experiences and stimuli and fun, I guess, you're used to, the more likely you'll be bored with the same level of experience. So let's say you're someone that likes skydiving, it's very likely that now skateboarding will seem very boring to you, right? Because you already did
Yeah.
skydiving. I mean, this is
Yeah.
an example, but I think we have to practice not taking certain things for granted. Because I mean, I'm definitely like this. Like once I've seen like the amazing landscapes in some countries, I go back to Europe and I'm like, this is kind of boring, you know?
True, but on the
And
other end, there's so many things you can do that like and
exactly.
you so little time that yes, like you just have to look somewhere else, I guess.
Exactly. I mean,
Like,
I just wanted to go back to
yeah,
the like hedonic adaptation is the enemy of happiness, I think, because like
yeah,
you don't want to need more and more. And I think this might be one of the money things, right? Like the more and more money you have, the more and more extreme things you can
yeah.
afford. But once it's gone, you're fucked, right? Because then you fall back to a baseline of experiences that seems like very dull compared to what you were able to do before. If you're a person that previously was able to like take their jet to like go to like a party on the other side of the country on a moment's notice, or maybe you can go skydiving every day and like go to different countries for vacation, and suddenly you don't have enough money to even go to another city in your country,
But
you will feel very upset.
then yeah, that this could be like a preview, a trailer for another episode on the money,
Yeah,
because I think there's a huge difference on like how did you get there? Did you make them yourself or not? Because
yeah,
that
yeah.
has an impact on like, can you make them again? Is this like
Yeah.
is there a way? Yeah. Anyway,
But I think like I think it goes back to like cultivating appreciation, and this is something definitely like you can take from the well-being course on Coursera. It's a great course, which is, and I think Tony Robbins said it nicely. What did he say? He said, um, and this goes back to appreciation and gratitude. I think appreciation and gratitude are two things that gratitude, I think, is one of the few things that has been
proved.
like
Yeah.
consistently
Yeah.
proven to boost happiness, gratitude. And I try to, every day when I write my journal, I try to have at least one item of gratitude in there, like something that I'm happy for, that, or something I'm grateful for that I have. And this is actually super powerful. But what is the thing he said? He said, oh, actually, I do know where to find it. I'm gonna need to type to find it. So I have like, so when I read the 7 Habits for a Great Life or something, I wrote this personal mission statement. Have you read that book?
Which one?
Seven Habits for a Great Life, I think.
No, I don't think so.
Or so no, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That's what it's called. I mix it up with the One
Oh
Habits
yeah,
for
that
Good.
I had that I've read. Yes.
Yeah. And one of the things that you're supposed to do was like write a personal mission statement, because he said the people that are the most fulfilled are the ones that are not self-centered or partner-centered or work-centered or money-centered. They said they're principle-centered. They have like a list of principles that they try to follow, and the best way to achieve this is to write a personal mission statement where you write like your principles and things that you want to strive for at all times. And this is actually really helpful. I don't read it as much as I want to. I wanted to read it every week, but I think I read it maybe once a month at most. But sometimes like when you're stuck on a decision, you're like, I don't know if I should do this, take this job or this job. And then you're like, oh, but this job pays so much, and I don't know, and this job is so far from my family and whatnot. And then you have all these pros and cons. Reading your personal mission statement can help, because if you
Yeah.
write down like your principles, like what is your principle? Is it money or is it relationships? It should be easy to take
Stick
the
to it.
job that is
Yeah.
closer to your family,
Yeah.
right? For example, if that's your principles. And let's see if it's in there. Exactly. So this is what he said. So it's in my personal mission statement. He said the sentence: "Replace expectation with appreciation." I think this is so great, because we expect so many things from life, and I think expectations are the enemy of enjoyment. Right? If we have like great expectations for a movie and it falls short of the
Yeah,
expectations, we think it's a
yeah,
bad movie.
that's true.
One of the best movies I've seen in the last 10 years was this random movie where I went with my friend. That was back in New York, and we were like, oh, let's go to the movies, and we randomly picked a movie. We
Yeah,
we looked at nothing, and the movie was actually Three Billboards in Ebbing, Missouri. I don't know if you've watched it,
I know.
but it was so fantastic, and we're laughing our asses off. And like, I think if I had read any reviews before, I would have appreciated it much less because it was so surprisingly good. Do you know what I mean? But if you go to a movie and like everyone's hyping it and everyone's like, it's the best movie ever, you go and you like expect it to be the best movie ever, and you watch the movie, you're like, meh,
Yeah,
not
that
as
is
great.
that is a big part as well. I
Yeah.
agree, but it's hard, like because it's hard. You can't really control expectation in a way. Like you kind of like grow into them. So
Yeah, you can always try to expect the worst, I guess.
yeah,
But it's maybe
it's
it's
like
like
the
the
memento
best
mori.
way.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
anyway,
But
man.
I think appreciation is a skill that can be learned,
Yeah.
and lowering your expectation is also a skill that can be learned, and that's it. That's really,
No, I agreed. I totally
yeah,
agreed. And it goes back to like thinking through of what you really want. It's
exactly,
time well spent, really well
for
spent.
sure.
Yeah.
I think there's certain habits and certain things you
Yeah.
can learn to like make you appreciate the moment more, and there's
Yeah.
there's a whole other episode we can do
Yeah.
on appreciating the moment. Um, yeah,
All right. Man, that was amazing. Thank
that
you.
was it.